Just like this live stream is not formal, I'm here sharing 5 ways to handle travel with your family. And these are just like tips that I use every time I travel. So this is not formal at all. I feel like when you're traveling with your family, it should be fun. And so I'm going to just be sharing some fun ways to make traveling easy, simple, and uncomplicated. And the first that I have found is to make a list. Make a list of things that you want to take for your kids. Make a list of things that you want to take for yourself. Just make a list. That way, when you are in the midst of packing, you can see what you have, see what you don't have, and then that will allow you to figure out other ways of getting what you need. If you're traveling with real small children, I would say under 2, of course, you're going to need like a car seat or a stroller. If you're traveling with older children, then just a stroller. There are some TSA approved car seats and strollers. I have reviews of them on my channel and I will link them once this live is over. I've reviewed several strollers as well as car seats over my time here on YouTube. So I will definitely link those so that you can check them out. Depending on what life stage your child is in, I'm definitely sure that some of the reviews that I have for the stroller or the car seat will work for you and your family. My next tip is to pack your patience. Whether your child is 6 months old, 6 years old, 16 years old, traveling, especially now, can be a task. There's so many different rules and regulations that are going into travel that it can be a little scary or a little bit more time consuming. I will say at the time that I'm recording this video, Real ID is in effect. So just make sure if you don't have the real ID that you have your passport. If you don't have a passport, then you will have to bring some documents to the airport in order for you to travel domestically. And when I mention domestically, I'm talking about the US. Of course, if you're going internationally, keep in mind that Customs and Border Patrol, they are following new rules and regulations on how you can get back into the country. So just be very mindful when you are traveling now of how to travel and what you need to travel. I've seen a lot of people on TikTok who are having difficulties even traveling domestically because they do not have a real ID. It goes into effect May 7th. So just a little over a month from the time that I'm filming this, which is April 1st of 2025. So May May 7th is when Real ID goes into effect. I don't know why I'm mixing up March and May. Maybe because it's begins with M. Another thing that I notice when it comes to travel is that I try to book experiences for the flight that are going to make everyone as comfortable as possible. So if that means extra leg room, or if you buy a day pass into the lounges, or if that means prepaying for luggage, if that means, getting premium access to boarding, just think of conveniences that will make travel easier if you can afford it. I know that doing the upgrades, can be a luxury if that's not in your budget, but if you can't afford it, definitely think of ways to buy upgrades to make traveling easier for your family. If you are traveling by road or car, think about what you can put in place so that while you're driving to your destination, it'll make it a lot easier. Depending on how long you are traveling and the age of the children that you're traveling with, you'll have to take a lot of stops. So, for example, when my family and I travel from Philly to DC, we don't have to make as many stops now because my son is much older. But when he was younger, we would have to make at least 1 or 2 stops where he'd go to the bathroom. We could change him. So just make sure you're calculating all that stuff into your trip as well. Things like tablets, blankets, toys, food, any activity to keep them entertained. I also have some activities and some items that I have reviewed on my channel, and I will link them as well. They're like card games, but you can also use them on the airplane. One is a sticker book. So pretty much your child will just sticker throughout the book, and that's really easy for them to do. It doesn't make a lot of mess, and they are refillable, so you really get a lot of value out of that type of item. It's from Melissa and Doug, and that is something my son really likes. The only thing is he goes through those books so fast. He'll sit there and literally sticker the entire book, but it's very affordable. We get them from Amazon. You can get them in a pack or you can buy them individually. And that's one way of having a quick, inexpensive, affordable item that your child can play with to get you to and from your destination, even if it's just if you're at the airport and you have like 30 minutes until your connecting flight or your flight, you can have your child play with something like that to just make things a little easier. Another thing that I think about when traveling is having backup outfits. Now, it's easier to do if you are traveling by car, but think about, depending on your child's age, if you need to bring a carry-on. We have been very lucky that me, my husband and I have been very lucky where we could just put things into like our backpack or like our purse or in my son's bag, and we haven't had too many problems. But now that he's getting a little older, we may have to think about additional items to add or even bring one carry-on just so that we have enough clothes, socks, shoes, because you never know what may happen to your luggage on the way to your destination. If you're driving by car, it's a little easier to do because you can always go to a stop and then pull whatever item you need out of that car. But just think about extra items, diapers, wipes, snacks to bring with your kids. That's super important when you're traveling as well. One other thing that I constantly think about when traveling is upon the destination that you're going to, how is the weather going to be? If you live in one area where the weather might be mild and then you're going into an area where it might be hot or cold, always bring an item for the place that you're arriving to. I have found that sometimes I can overdress or underdress, and then that will put me in a situation where I'm like, oh my goodness, I should have dressed warmer, or I should have dressed cooler. So that's something too. I know the weather can vary, but now that we're entering warmer weather, if you are from the Northeast going to the South, vice versa, across the country, the US, it should be relatively the same temperatures. So just be a little mindful if you're riding with your children that layering them might be helpful if they're in the airport and then you want to have them layered so that when they get on a plane, it might be cooler, it might be warmer for them. That's something else to think about as well. I will also say if you're traveling by plane to check your airline's policy with bringing certain items on, depending on how old your child is, that will also kind of dictate what they let you slide with. I know with children, very small kids, depending on how small, you can you most of the time they will allow you to bring like their food and their carry-on. But if you have an older child, a child that's not going to be sitting in the lap, they do have a little more discretion about what they allow you to bring. So just make sure you're checking TSA, your airport or your airline about items that they will allow you to bring with you on the flight as far as snacks, containers, food. Just check. That stuff is changing all the time, so you definitely want to make sure that you are up to speed with air travel. Again, Real ID goes into effect May 7th, so that may also determine how you travel. If your child is under a certain age, they may not need identification, but if they're over a certain age, they may also need a Real ID. So just make sure you're checking your state, how old the child has to be, so that you're not in a situation where you're trying to travel, but you didn't bring the proper documents and now none of y'all can go anywhere. The last, I will say, main fun tip when it comes to traveling is to make it fun. Give grace to everyone. Give grace to your children. I know that can be a little hard, especially if they're a little younger, because depending on what time you get to the airport, you could be rushing. But what I have learned is that even if you have to rush, or even if there's a minor inconvenience, it shouldn't hinder or affect your child. You should never push all that weight and anger on top of your child. That's not fair to them. And I know that traveling, especially now, can be a little bit trying, but just always make sure that your children are just going along with you. So I wouldn't try to push your frustration on with them if that means that you all arrive late, or if that means that you all have to go from one part of the airport to another. Just try to always remember to give your kids a level of grace with travel. Give yourself grace with travel, and know that at the end of it, you're going to be at your vacation, which is going to be what it's all for. So I hope that this quick little live about some easy travel tips, some informal travel tips, were helpful for you. As always, thank you so much for watching this live. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel. I go live every week where I share more tips for us mommies on how to manage motherhood. I will see you all here next week for another live on another amazing topic. And I will link all the items that I discussed in this live in the description box and comment below. So make sure to look for that. See you next time.